in a lot of ways, I think this whole situation has taught us that sometimes you just have to be okay with not having closure. Like we like to think that life is like the movies. Like even if something bad happens, like let's say somebody you love dies, maybe like you still have the closure and see them in their final moments. I think this situation has really prepared a lot of us to be okay if that doesn't happen. Like even if a bad situation happens, it's okay to not have closure from it. Obviously, it's not going to be hopefully as bad as this, where it's like a collective kind of, like all of humanity has gone through this and no one has gotten their closure. But I think on a personal level, it kind of prepares you for real life in the sense that some things are just going to happen and you're not going to be able to have closure, you know?
Recording now. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Stayin podcast. This is your host, Shoki, and I'm joined by another AUS alumni with me, Mr. Mohammad. Mohammad, thanks for being here.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
And if you couldn't guess by the way we're dressed, the topic for today's discussion is graduating in COVID-19 pandemic. Both you and I attended the same university. You and I majored in the same major, computer science. You and I work on the same senior design project, and you and I graduate on the same day. Before we actually start about, graduated, we'll get to that. Before we actually talk about the graduation itself, I want to kind of wind the clock back a bit, a few months back, and take you back to January, specifically January 26th, which was a Sunday and the first day of our last semester. Talk to me about what was going on through your head, knowing that this was going to be your last semester.
Well, I think you should backtrack a little, because if you remember, I actually did not attend the first week.
Yeah, I just recalled that after thinking of the question. Right now you did recall, like, explain that, elaborate on that. Why did you not attend the first day or first week rather?
Well, because I had a virus. It wasn't Corona. It was a chickenpox.
Yeah.
But I think that was foreshadowing the rest of the year, because
it was, yeah. So you were you had a pre-Corona phase.
Yeah, I knew what a virus felt like. I had to like be in isolation, so I experienced that.
When did you realize you had chickenpox? Like mid-December or January? When?
No. I came to school, to university, and on the first day, I felt very tired. So I went to the nurse, and I mean, it wasn't related, but I told the nurse, like, I'm very tired. I have a fever. I also have this, like, like pimple here. I don't know if that's related. And she just took one look at it and she was like, stay here. And she just left. She came back and she's like, have you ever had chickenpox before? I'm like, no. And she's like, okay, you're going to have to be like home for a week at least.
Have you ever had chickenpox before? No?
No.
Well, now's the time.
Yeah.
Well, you do now.
So, yeah. So I thought, like, this is a very shitty last first day. So.
Yeah. And so she asked you to go home for a week.
Yeah.
And I remember, because we were doing two classes together. We were doing our senior project together and AI. So, and for the viewers who are watching, the two of us are part of a 4-member team. So the 3 of us showed up to AI and we didn't see you. So we are like, where's Mohammed? And then I guess Hassan was the guy who told us, yeah, he has chickenpox. And then you and I talked for a bit and you did have chickenpox. And we're like, well, this sucks, because now, like, what does this mean for the senior project and stuff? But we're like, okay, it's going to get worse. It's just the start of the semester. But yeah, so your first day, or first week rather, was you quarantining yourself in a way.
Exactly. For a week, like after the first week I came back and they were like, it's still active, so you need to go back home. And I got like 3 different sick leaves. I only came on Thursday and I had a quiz that day about something I had no idea about. I just
bio quiz, I think, right?
No, it was numerical.
Numerical quiz, yeah. How did the quiz go?
I got a 6 out of 10.
That's something not bad. Like that. For me, I was kind of in disbelief because, I'd been around US for a while now, and I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe this is happening, because I kept fantasizing about this day where it's going to be my last semester. I'm going to graduate soon. And this was like the last first day,
Yeah.
right? Like I felt all sorts of emotions, and it also, I was also kind of like excited, like, oh, okay. Because I had only 2 technical courses, if you remember, in my last semester, because I had finished
Yeah.
all my other computer science courses, and I was just doing the senior project and artificial intelligence, and then I was doing all these free electives, and then I was also doing the play. So it was kind of like a smooth semester in terms of the workload. But yeah, I was kind of like in shock that, oh my god, it's finally happening. It's my last semester. But so on the subject of first, when was the first time you heard the word coronavirus, and what was your first impression at the time?
I honestly don't remember quite well, but I do remember, I think it happened in February, and I
Hello?
were like,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, first week of February.
do you hear me now?
I do, I do.
I keep saying my internet connection is unstable. I don't know why.
It's fine, it's fine. I
Is it
can change it
unstable?
in editing and stuff.
Oh, you're gonna
It gets
edit
cut
the.
like it just did right now. Yeah, I'll get rid of the parts where the internet wasn't working. So first, you heard in the first week of Feb.
I think something like that. Yeah, it was probably the first week of February, and I remember me and my friends would like avoid surfaces and stuff, but I didn't think it would, you know, become more serious.
Escalade. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the first time I heard it was also in February, and I'll get to this because I made a list of all the emails we've received, the emails that kind of shaped the semester and also certain events. So one of the
Mm-hmm.
very first emails that we received was in the first week of February by the health center, and this was around the time where there was these rumors going on that UAE has cases of the coronavirus, and that there's a family in UAE. They showed up here, and now there's it's spreading. And then there was some case in
Yeah.
Dubai Mall, and and then people were like divided because some people said no, it's just bogus, and other people are like no, it's a conspiracy theory, and that the numbers are quite larger than what they're reporting. But so the first time I actually heard of it was when I saw it on the news, but I didn't think too much about it. But when the health center sent that email that said that if you think you have symptoms, then please show up to the health center and get yourself checked.
Yeah, it became
And
real.
I remember asked, yeah, it became it like that was like I'm here. That was the I'm here moment. Like it still wasn't as serious to me because I was like, okay, it's like a flu, what is it? But I remember asking a couple of guys if you think you had the coronavirus, would you go to the health
Yeah.
center? Because a big news that had come out was that people are being quarantined. And in my head, when I thought of the word quarantine, I started thinking of it from a very science fiction aspect. Like, okay, you'll be put in like behind this glass door, and there'll be these guys in their white lab coats, and they'll be having a notepad, and they'll be like studying you and analyzing you, and you'll be driven to insanity. So I was like, I don't want that life. So, just a question to you: if at that time you found yourself experiencing those symptoms, would you have gone to the health center?
Honestly, I think in the beginning it didn't feel like, I don't know if you recall maybe 10 years earlier when H1N1 was spreading.
Yeah,
And I think that was the only like, thing I could compare it to. So
right.
when I compared it to H1N1 and like the situation and what had happened, I
Yeah,
thought, it wasn't that serious. And I actually knew like a few people who got it and it was just like a flu. So I assumed this was going to be just like that.
similar. Right, right.
So I think if I just got a fever, especially that there was no, even medication for it, let alone cure, I
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have gone. Maybe just to get a
yeah,
sick leave or something. But like if I was gonna be quarantined, I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know what I would have done.
That's true because the big thing was that what exactly was quarantine, because no one knew what quarantine would mean. So when I remember
Yeah.
asking these guys, because in Wuhan at the time people were dying, like there were reports, and so I
Yeah.
asked these people like if you had the coronavirus, which meant that you were going to die, and reporting the virus would mean that you had to isolate yourself. Would you
Yeah.
would you report? And the selfish answer would be no, because if I'm going to die, I want to live out, whatever time I have the way I want to. And the
Yeah.
selfless answer would be that, oh no, because I have the virus, I'm kind of a threat to people around me, so I should get myself quarantined. So I ended up asking all these guys. I remember I asked Iyas. I said, hey, Iyas, so if you had the virus, would you go get yourself checked? Like, no, man, I don't want the virus. Like, why? Because I'm too young to die. I'm just 20. I'm just in my 20s, but I'm too young to die. And I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have reported myself, because
Hmm.
I was like, no, I want to live my life whatever time I
Yeah.
have. I want to graduate, man. It was hard to get here, but uh, things there were other things in store for us. So that was the first time I heard about it through the university,
Mm.
and then on
Yeah.
February, like the classes went. It was a normal semester at that point. We were meeting on a constant basis. We were like working on
Yeah. Yeah.
senior. We were hanging outside campus, and it seemed really smooth, at least for me.
Yeah.
But I guess the email that really shook me was the one we got on February 29th. And you, me, and Iyas, the three of us, we were actually together when this email was sent. The three of us were, I don't know if you recall, we were at this coffee shop working on senior. And around 5 p.m., we got this email that said the subject was important message to AUS community. The
Was it a
ministry has
workspace? The
what
the
workspace?
coffee shop?
Yeah, I think I don't remember the name of the coffee shop, but it was a coffee shop outside campus. You, me, and Iyas
Hmm.
went there, and at around 5 p.m. we got this message that said, "Important message to AUS community: UAE mandated cancellation of events and activities." And essentially, what that said is all sorts of public events and activities on campus were being uh, cancelled indefinitely. And when I read that, I was confused, because I thought to myself, well, if they're canceling events, how is it that they're canceling events but not canceling classes?
Yeah.
That didn't make sense to me. And I was really concerned, because I was like, does canceling events mean the play is canceled? And I was on my phone. And I don't think, I don't know if you remember, but I wasn't talking to you guys much, even in the cafe, or when Hassan decided to text us, and Hassan said, let's work at his house for the senior project.
Hmm.
And I was like, I was so sad, because I was just thinking to myself, like, what does this mean? And we ended up going to Hassan's house, and we watched, I think, horse racing. And Hassan was just like, I needed some sort of comfort. I need some comfort, like, okay, no, Shoki, everything's gonna be okay. And the first thing Hassan does is like, come, let's watch horse racing. And we're in his living room, we're watching horse racing instead of working on the senior computer science project. But what was your reaction to that email when all the events were
To
canceled?
be honest, like I wasn't a big events guy at all
Yeah,
at AUS. Like I don't
yeah.
think I even attended the club fair. What there
Okay.
was a club fair, right?
There was a club fair, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I even attended this one at all. Like I didn't even see the preparations maybe.
Okay.
And like that wasn't the biggest moment for me, but I think the fact that it started to become more and more serious was kind of
Right.
alarming, but not too alarming.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
even by the time where we stopped uni, it wasn't even that alarming.
Yeah.
It
I'm,
wasn't
I'm
it
getting.
wasn't alarming until we were told we're not going to be able to come back after the
Yeah.
3 week.
I'm getting to that, because I have all the emails
Yeah,
listed here. So
yeah, yeah.
I want to make a timeline so I can just put you in the frame of mind and the madness that we
Yeah,
all
yeah.
experienced. So on like March 3rd was such a strange day for me, because I think I've experienced all sorts of emotions that day. I was like excited. I was happy. That was the day I was dancing, by the way, March 3rd. Uh, so March 3rd, I come back from my
Mm.
rehearsals, feeling all giddy and stuff. And I get on our senior group. Hassan sends this message in Arabic, and usually Hassan has this habit of sharing these memes. The
What
slapstick.
time was it? What time was it
When Hassan
sent?
when Hassan sent the
No,
message,
the email. What time was it sent?
it was sent at exactly 11:17 p.m.
Eleven
But
seventeen.
before that, at around 8 p.m. or 7:30, 8 I guess, Hassan sent this text in Arabic. And Hassan has this habit, right, of sending these like slapstick comedy videos and some jokes that I can't get because I don't speak Arabic. But so I just played along with it and I said, "Oh, haha, Hassan, really funny, good joke. What does it mean, by the way?" And Hassan said, "It means that classes are going to be cancelled until spring break." And I said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, right." It's like, "It's true." And then he sent me another article, and I only looked at Khalij Times when it came to the news or Gulf News. So I said, this is like blasphemy. There are no reports from Khalij Times. There are no reports from Gulf News. So I don't believe any of this. And you respond like, "Oh my God, what for real? What's happening?" And gradually all these news websites just started updating their articles, and then Khalij Times sent out an article that said that classes have been suspended for both universities and schools. And I was still in disbelief because I said, "No, this is not happening right now," right? Because we had just had our camping trip also, not very long ago, from March 3rd, and we were like, "Oh, we should do
Yeah.
more of these things more often. We should make most of the last semester." And when I saw Khalij Times' article, my heart kind of stopped for a bit. I was like, "No, this is like, stay calm. It's not real yet." And
Yeah.
people in our senior team, we were discussing this, and simultaneously, people in my theater group, they were also discussing this. Everyone was panicking, like, what the hell's going on? And I was staying calm because I said, "Listen, unless the university issues out an official message, nothing has been established yet." At 11:17 p.m., we got the message with the subject, "Suspension of on-campus classes from March 8th to April 5th, 2020.
Yeah. I
What was your
actually remember
reaction?
that week.
Yeah,
Um, that was the last week, right, of classes.
it was the message was sent out on a Tuesday, and that was the last week of
Yeah.
classes. So we had 2 days to be on campus after that.
Yeah. I remember the next day we had a biology lab, and like, funnily enough, we were dealing with bacteria. So the lab instructor was telling us to wash our hands and not breathe in what's on the petri dishes. And I mean, we were all just wondering, how are we going to be doing these exact same
Yeah,
procedures when we're online? Like, I can understand how we're going to conduct online classes, but how would an online lab, a
right.
biology lab where we have to dissect rats, going to look
Yeah,
like? So we were just told that they're taking care of it and whatnot, but whatever. But the next day, when it was the last day of classes, our biology professor just spent the entire class giving us preparations for the end of the world, basically. Like, it was the most gloomy day, and the fact that it was the last day is so sad because he was almost not sugarcoating anything. He was telling us, it's spreading, and people are going to get it, and people are going to die from this. And being told that is just
yeah,
so sad when you're just about to graduate. Like, people are going to die. Like, I could be one of those people, like,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
it was a very depressing note to leave uni. And honestly, because it was our last semester, I think none of us, I think if we were like in junior year, maybe we would have been like, "Oh yeah, like, free vacation." But since it was our last semester, we're like, we don't want any of this like happening right now. We
yeah.
just want to finish.
Yeah, and I want to say this because when we were talking, when the classes had been suspended, you said this thing, and I'm kind of paraphrasing because I remember it hitting me. You said that we were writing the final chapter of our university life, and we couldn't even close the
Hmm.
book without wearing gloves.
Did I say that?
And you said that, yeah, and I was like, oh, wow, that's so profound. But yeah, like, so Tuesday was the day we got that email that said the classes are going to be suspended for a month, essentially. And
Hmm.
the next day, when I went to campus the next day, there was like such a, like you said, gloomy and depressing aura in the atmosphere. And I remember going to my 11 a.m. class, my costume design class, and everyone was just so confused. Like, how are we going to move forward now? What's the next month going to look
Hmm.
like? And like you said, your biology professor was kind of talking about preparing you, but in a very negative sense. my instructor was kind of preparing us in terms of how the classes would commence. How would they, what medium would be used, and how the online class thing is going to be. And we were kind of going through a tutorial how to use the Blackboard tool and stuff. We didn't study anything that day. And my costume design professor is also the same professor who was working on the costumes of the play. And I had this sinking feeling in my heart, and I just went up to her and I asked her, like, hey, I don't know if you're done working on this, but can I see the sketch of my character's costume, if you don't mind? Because I don't know if I'm going to get the chance to see that. And she's like, yeah, sure. And then she showed me the sketch, and I went to her office. She showed me the sketch. I took a picture, and she had all the materials ready. She's like, I was going to start working on all the characters' costumes today. And then we got this message. And then I remember going to my accounting class after that, which is immediately after my costume design class. And we didn't learn anything there either. Everyone was just discussing the situation. And he said, our instructor himself was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how the midterms are going to take place. Are they going to be online? Are they going to be canceled? What's the syllabus going to be like? Everyone was just confused, and people are just like, stay calm and stay strong, essentially. And Wednesday also happened to be the day where we had our weekly meetings with our advisor, right? And the three of you ditched that meeting because you and Hassan had some diet thing. That's what you told me. So I don't know how much truth is involved with that. Iyas was busy. So in hindsight, this became the last meeting, but it was just me and two of our advisors. And we didn't have many updates to tell them regarding our progress. So I was just discussing the situation with them too. And I was asking them, like, Professor, how do we communicate now? Or what's the next one going to look like, especially with regards to our senior project? Because for those of the people who are watching this don't know, our senior project was a facial recognition based attendance system. And the entire cornerstone of that project was to have a camera and to have a live audience in front of you in a physical space like a classroom. And that's what we had to demonstrate. We don't have a physical space. We can't have a live audience because of the social distancing protocols that were implemented later. And we couldn't be in university. So how are we even going to execute this? And, like he said that we have 1 month right now, and you guys have some time. So just keep working on whatever you can, work on the reports. You can communicate with us through email. And he said that, I remember his words so vividly, because he said, I don't think it's that serious, Shoki. Right now, they're doing this as a sanitation measure. And in 2 weeks, we should be good. Like, they just asked the students to leave right now, because the instructors, a lot of people don't know, but instructors were still asked to stay on campus for another week at least. Yeah. Or up until because spring break did not officially begin. Our classes were dismissed before spring break began. Spring break was, I think, 1 week. There was like 1 week left or 2 weeks left for spring break. They were asked to stay on campus for the time before spring breaks actually started. So they said, we'll still be on campus. So if you want to show up, you can come. And he asked me, are you going to travel? And I said, no, I'm not traveling. And then, so that supposedly was the last meeting I had with our advisors. And that was on March 7th. And March 8th was the last day. It was a Thursday. Before I go to March 8th, which was Thursday, the last time you and I met face to face was also Wednesday. After the meeting, you, me, and Hassan, you and Hassan actually bought the robe that day.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So, and I met you guys, and you actually dropped me off that day.
I did. I remember you were talking about driving lessons and how your the instructor was like joking about having corona or something.
Because the instructor was like, he's like, everything is made in China. And I said, yeah, even the virus is made in China. He's like, yeah, even the virus is made in China. And again, everyone was confused, because our concern at that point was, what's the next month going to look like?
Yeah.
That was our concern. Like, what's the next month going to look like in terms of our classes, in terms of the practical labs we talked about, for our senior project, for the events that we were looking forward to. Because one by one, like, as we got more emails, it seemed that the next email packed a harder punch than the previous email.
Yeah, I think even after the things were set, like, the quarantine, the social distancing, the lockdowns, even then, I think the biggest concern for most people was not, their health. It was the practicality of the situation. Like,
Yeah.
It's the uncertainty is what made it so, horrible, not the fact that, oh, I might get it. I think most people weren't as worried about the virus as they were about, like, what's the next week gonna look like, because every day there are new
100%.
announcements.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that, like, as you saw the numbers spike up, you just start getting more and more concerned. Like, it just became
Hmm.
like a video game, like new high score. Every day would be a new high score, and
Plague Inc.
yeah, but there was no satisfaction in seeing those numbers go up. So March 8th was the last day, and I
No,
remember
March
like
8th, I think it was the first day.
no, large March 8th was the last day of our classes. That was the Thursday. It was the
March
last
8th
day.
is a Sunday.
March 8th is a Sunday. Sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
March 5th was the Thursday. It was the
Yeah.
last day, and I remember because when we on March 7th, the our director, he had kind of sent the entire cast an email, and he said that I don't know what we're doing all these measures for the safety of both the students and the faculty. And then we
Hmm.
showed up on Thursday, which was like the last rehearsal, and I was really quiet that day because I just didn't know what was going to happen. I did my part in the play, but I kept to myself that day because I was just trying to process the situation. And the director was like, we've canceled all our shows for now. Even we were planning to go to Abu Dhabi, by the way,
Hmm.
uh, for one of the performances. I remember. If you guys, you remember, we remember talking about this.
You
And I
told
asked
me, yeah.
Hassan, hey, yeah, would you show up to Abu Dhabi to watch me? And he's like, I'll think about it. Uh, and so everyone's just really sad. And we're just trying to
Yeah.
process the situation. So I remember that was officially the last time I was on campus because we didn't have any classes on campus after that. But I did show up to
Hmm.
campus unofficially because the driving classes still continued, you know. And so that was kind of weird. I'm like, okay, driving class is continuing, but I kept going. And my driving instructor, he was actually surprised when I told him, when he asked me why aren't people coming here, and I told him, don't you know they asked all students to go back home because of the whole virus situation? And he said, really? Because the driving institute has not been informed of anything as such. So the classes continued, and simultaneously, my dad, because my dad was calling from Saudi, I was in UAE. My dad was confused, and he was asking me to get back because of the whole residency situation that we talked
Hmm.
about. And I was adamant on staying back because we had so many things going on. We had our senior project, graduation classes, and to me, even the play, like even though we had just that one, we had like 2 shows planned, and everything had been canceled except for 2 shows. I still thought to myself that it's not worth the risk. And even like the last thing I'll mention is my actual health. Like you said, we were all concerned about these other events and what the next month is going to look like. Health was like the least of our priorities
Hmm.
because of how uncertain things were. And
Yeah.
what had happened is on uh, March 8th, right, which is a Sunday, the university sent an email out to all their international students advising them not to travel. But if they had to travel, like inform the deans of the respective colleges. I ignored that email
Yeah.
because I was kind of, I set my mind on not traveling. And we I was going for my driving classes, and the driving classes were kind of like the only silver lining at that point for me because I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
it's going well. And I got through my driving classes and the parking test. I was done with that. And I remember walking into the library because I wanted to print a few documents. And as soon as I put, like, our library has those automatic doors, right?
Yeah.
Before the doors could open, the person at the front desk, she waved and she told me, like, you can't enter. She smiled and she waved. She's like, it's not going to happen. And I just saw, like, all the computers, right? People were kind of putting white sheets over the computers. So it was like literally like a ghost town. That's the
Yeah.
imagery. White sheets, no one there, just one person at the front desk, and the entire campus is quiet. And I remember continuing with the online classes, and because flights were being suspended one by one,
Hmm.
uh, as an emergency, I ended up taking like, my dad was really adamant on me traveling, and I was adamant on staying back. And my dad kept saying, like, what if the situation gets worse, and what if
Yeah.
this pandemic lasts longer than you're anticipating, you'll be stuck there. Like, you're an international
Hmm.
student, you don't have anyone there. What are you going to do? And then I was like, no, and what if it doesn't, and what if I end up there and this whole thing had been like you have to be quarantined yourself for 2 weeks, and I don't
Still a
have
lot
that
of
time. Like,
ifs.
yeah, if a lot of ifs, and it was very possible that the classes would not only the suspension would not only last till 1 month, but would actually be extended for the entire semester.
I think the problem was the fact that there was like there was this asynchronicity in a way between real life and university, because like it took longer for real life to take a pause than university. Like when classes were suspended, everything else was still functioning, like mostly everything, like malls.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There was no
for sure.
curfew. People were still meeting. There was no masks. There was nothing
No,
against that. So I think
yeah,
we were all just like, this is probably not gonna last because
yeah,
we're normal apart from uni. But I think slowly, as time went by, we just started seeing everything shut down one by one. And I think at that point is when like the depression and the gloom hit, because it was like,
yeah,
so it's not just our life in uni, we're getting isolated, like we're getting locked up basically.
yeah.
Like that was the worst part of it, to be honest. The fact that,
Um,
it was gradual. Like I think it was
like a
both
slow
good and
burn.
bad. Yeah, it was a slow burn. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like I remember we were still going out, going to Hassan's farm, meeting with people, going to malls.
yeah,
That was fine. Like the most we would do is just, try not to touch anything. Like
yeah.
try to
That's
avoid
true.
people. Like I remember we'd sit in restaurants and somebody would cough and we just look at each other like, oh, like
Yeah,
corona.
same. Like when I took the flight, and at the airport, because I was just so confused. I was like, am I gonna make it back here? Because I need to make it back. I have so many things. I gotta do so much. I remember asking the immigration officer, because I was so nervous and had so much anxiety. I'm like, hey, I literally said this. I'm an international student. If I come back, do I have to quarantine myself for 2 weeks, or would you advise me to travel? I asked him I'd already checked in, and I asked him, would you advise me to travel? And he said, I don't know. I'm like go. He stamped like, just leave. I'm like, okay. And so I left UAE at that time, and because of the state with which I just left all my belongings. I packed I had a small backpack with my passport and my documents, and I took my script with me and one luggage. That's it. And my luggage had the graduation robe, which my mother put without me knowing, by the way. My mother was visiting at the time, and she asked me, "Should I pack your graduation robe?" And I told her no. Like, why? I'm gonna wear it when I get back there. She's like, "No, I'll just keep it just in case." I'm like, okay. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, just in case. I don't know why, but okay, fine. And so when I came to Saudi, you know what my plan was? My plan was I would just take a flight to drop my mom off and take the next immediate flight to get back to UAE, because
Hmm.
I started doing the math in my head and I said, okay, it's March 11th right now. If I'm going to be quarantined for 2 weeks, that means 14 days. 14 days means by so and so date, I can make it back to UAE and campus. And then I can, if classes resume, if the play resumes, if things get back to normal, I can live my life. I won't miss out on much.
Little did you know, 14 days were nothing compared to all this time
They
that
were
has
nothing.
passed.
And as soon as I reached home, and I gave I helped my mom with the luggage and I kept them. And I just went to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I need to get another flight back. And and my dad just put his hand on my shoulder and he said, sleep. Talk to me about this tomorrow morning. Just sleep right now. I'm like, I didn't sleep, by the way. I couldn't sleep. I was on my phone and I was just like, I just kept thinking about what does this mean? And the next day I was having this conversation with my dad and he said that, look, I'm not, you did what you had to do. You showed up here, and now if you want to go back, I'm not going to stop you. But I did have a ticket booked for the return like 2 days later, but he canceled that ticket, my dad, without me knowing. He told me the next day, he's like, by the way, I canceled that ticket. I'm like, why did you cancel that ticket? Then he told me, because it's not that if the situation does improve, it's not that the situation will improve in UAE, but the rest of the world, the situation won't improve. If the situation
Exactly.
with the virus improves, it'll improve on a global scale. And everyone is just waiting right now, right? So wait for a bit. and let's see how the situation unfolds itself, and then you can make a move. I'm not going to stop you then. But then international travel started being suspended for many countries, Saudi Arabia included, and that's when I guess things really hit us when the lockdown was announced for every country.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it
To be
March for
honest,
UAE?
I think it was around like 20 something of March. That was
Yeah,
just a
end of
curfew though. Like
yeah curfew.
um the worst thing that happened was probably for, people who lived in Dubai, because I think maybe after like 2 or 3 weeks of the curfew, Dubai was the only Emirates that had a full 24-hour lockdown, and it lasted
Yeah,
for 3 weeks. So that was, and the airport was closed. It was such a gloomy time because, other people like from other Emirates, they could at least leave their house from 6 to 8 or 6 to 10, but we couldn't, do
yeah,
anything. Like the most we could do was get a permit to go to the co-op or to the grocery to get some stuff, and we had to come back. Like there was no, visiting people, no, not even roaming around.
yeah,
So you can just imagine how suffocating it felt, because at that point it wasn't like, even if there was a curfew but you didn't leave the house at all, at
yeah.
least you know that life is going on outside even if you're still home.
Right.
But when like it lasted for 24 hours for like 3 weeks, it felt like it's not just me that's being stuck here. Like it's basically dead out there. Like there's
Yeah,
nothing going on. So
yeah.
I think that was the worst part. And like I remember going to Carrefour in a mall,
I was
and
gonna get to that. Yeah,
everything was closed. Like I would just go in. There were no lights except in the supermarket, and social distancing, masks. It was such a gloomy scene,
I
compared
remember.
to now.
I was gonna bring that up. Like you when we were talking online when we were working on the project, you said that I went to the grocery store the other day, and I had to like keep a distance from this other person who was shopping, and I had to wear gloves and wear a mask, and it was just such a surreal moment because this was such a normal thing that I used to do. I could just walk into a grocery store, pick up a box of biscuits, and then walk out. And now here I am. Like it's so unreal and new to me, and I don't know how I feel about this. But you mentioned that when we were in the lockdown and we were inside and nothing was happening for us, but nothing was happening outside either. Uh,
Hmm.
so people kind of view this in two different ways. Some people say that it's not just you who's going through this; everyone is going through
Yeah,
this. So you know, don't take it personally, or don't be too sad
that
about
makes
it.
it worse. It made it worse
I
for me because you know.
Yeah. So or are you one of those people who are like, it doesn't matter if someone else is going through it. The fact is I'm going through it right now, and I need to get out of it. Like, which one did you fall under?
Um, no, I neither actually, because for me the trouble was that everybody was going through this. Like I think some people would say that as a reassurance that we're all going through this, but for me
Yeah,
that was the bad part about all of it,
yeah,
is that, oh, like everyone is going through this. Like that's not a good
yeah,
sign,
yeah,
because if you were going through something and it was serious, let's say, but it was maybe not just you, but it wasn't a global thing, you would
yeah,
feel sad, but you wouldn't feel, a sense of doom. I think the
yeah.
fact that everybody was going through it was is this the end? You
Apocalyptic.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, very apocalyptic because everyone is going through this right now.
Yes.
And it's not a good thing that everyone is going through.
Yeah. People said that, like you said, people are trying to encourage you to find solace in the fact that you're not alone in this, and everyone is here in this together. So but um, the fact is that you just had to deal with it, and I didn't know how to feel about that. Like there was nothing happening in the house, and there was nothing happening
Hmm.
outside, and it just felt really gloomy and like
Hmm.
end of the world kind of situation.
Like it's not like a war where you're sitting with your tribe and your people and your nation, and you're like, we're all going through this and you're sitting together. No, you have to say that through a screen. So
Yeah,
that's like, are we going through the same thing? Like I don't even know what you're going through. What is the standard that I can
yeah,
compare to?
right,
Like in
yeah,
a war
exactly.
you're like, oh, that guy lost his limb, that guy lost his mother. But in a quarantine you're like, I don't know what that guy went through. I just know he's
Yeah,
isolated like me. It's like imprisonment in a way. it was
So
more of a mental imprisonment, you know.
yes, it was. And March 30th is when, like, the shift, like one of the prime email, March 30th, is the campus was going to finish entirely online. We got that email from our university. And what a dagger that was, huh?
You know, I remember exactly what I was mad about when I read that email. Like the consequences of that email, the ramifications is that
Yeah,
beforehand, our biology professor told us that he's going to cancel the quizzes that were supposed to be in those 2 to 3 weeks before
yeah, yeah,
spring break, and he was going to combine them into one midterm or two midterms.
yeah,
So, like after we come back, after we resume classes on campus. So, reading that email that, you know, classes are not going to be resuming on campus, I felt this anger in me. I was frustrated because the quizzes were as hard as they get, so I was not prepared for a midterm, like a
yeah,
combination of all of those quizzes. And what made me mad is that, you know, we were still gonna have the midterm online, so nothing really changed. Like the quizzes were not back; it was just midterms again, you know.
yeah,
So that was the first frustrating thing for me, because
yeah,
whatever plans they delayed for, you know, after the online classes never came to fruition because the online classes remained till the end of the semester, so they had to
right.
compromise even more, and they should have probably just stuck to whatever they wanted to do because they already did that. Like we had online quizzes, we had online midterms. It was, you know, the same as it would have been.
Yeah, just like there's not much to say about that, but like, because when you found out that online classes were going to continue, you went from thinking your concern was that 1 month, how do I get through this 1 month? You're like, if I can just get through this 1 month, everything's going to be normal. And as
Yeah.
that month was about to end, you realize, hey, the journey is a lot longer than this.
Hmm.
And like, I have now, because then we had to deal with finals happening online. We had to deal with our senior project happening online. All the exams, like you mentioned, what is, like, how will the changes in the syllabus be adapted according to the situation?
Yeah.
And our ceremony, which I'll get to, by the way, like, what does that mean for the ceremony? And so that was the email we got on March 30th. And
Yeah.
so now just talk to me about the online class experience. How did
Oh,
that go
let
for
me
you?
let me talk to you about that.
Yeah,
Oh boy, do I have
please.
a lot to say.
Yeah,
Like, you know, looking at online classes now, because my sister is having online classes, I think despite the fact that it's the same thing, you know, like it's online classes, it's the same exact thing, but because of the fact that almost everything has gone back to normal besides the masks and social distancing and, you know, the sanitizing and whatnot, you could actually get through that because although you're having the online classes, once you're done, you have the entire world at your hands almost. Like you can go out, you can see your friends, you can, you know, you can play some game, you can leave the house, you know, you can go out to dinner, you can hang out with your friends. So I think what made the online class experience for us so bad is the fact that once you were done with the class, you couldn't, you know, like think of plans or, oh, it's a Thursday, like let me go out, let me have fun.
yeah,
No, it was like,
yeah,
what should I watch on Netflix? You know?
yeah,
So
yeah,
there was there was no motivation to even end the classes. Like, you know, on a Thursday, on a typical Thursday on campus, you are so excited for those 10 minutes to finally finish because you have so
yeah,
many plans. And even if you
yeah,
didn't have plans, that was even more exciting because you're just anticipating how the day is going to go. But
right.
when we had the online classes with the lockdown and the curfew and all of that, you weren't even excited for the class to finish because
Yeah,
you knew you were just gonna either watch something online like a show, or you were just gonna close that laptop and go back to sleep.
yeah,
And
precisely.
that was very like gloomy, you know, because there was no point in even leaving your room besides to eat.
Yeah,
You know.
true.
And that was the first weeks, like before we knew it was serious, it was going to be like fully like that. It was hard because it was so easy to, you know, tell yourself that I can just wake up 10 minutes before the class, or
Yeah.
even 5 minutes. Like you don't have to even like even if you live on campus, you need some time to brush your teeth, get up,
Yeah.
dress, go to class. But online, it was like, let me
You
just
could
get up
just roll
five
out of your bed
minutes.
and then sign into iLearn, and
Exactly.
yeah,
And that actually made your energy so low because you you didn't have any incentive to
precisely.
freshen
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
There's no incentive to freshen up. Like you didn't even have to move out of your bed. So it was hard. It was so uninteresting.
Yeah.
I would fall asleep a lot. I would just put my head and just listen to the professor talk and talk, and I would just sleep. Like their
Yeah.
voices were almost like an ASMR to me.
Yeah, like,
you know?
and a lot of people who just join the session and then that's it. Like it's background. It's like a background thing, right? Your
Yeah.
laptop's in the background and you're preparing breakfast or something, and like you said, there was no motivation. And I agree with you 100% on the fact that in our case, when the lockdown happened, uh, the world outside our university was also on lockdown. So after we are done with classes, it's not like we could look forward to something or move out. But you mentioned right now, even though the restrictions have kind of lifted and people are moving, do you still think that's a good idea?
To have online classes.
No, like to move out and stuff. Like you said, when the online classes get over, you move out, you meet your friends, play games. Is that even advisable to do?
Well, honestly, like I'll be honest with you, I don't feel that much difference between my life before Corona and right now. Like I think the only difference is we're just a bit more mindful about who we go out with and where we go out. But I mean, for the most part, we are just practicing our lives as normally as we can. Like we do see our friends. We, I mean, there's not. I guess we're just sick of it. Like no pun intended. We're just sick of the whole situation because we're seeing that at least in the UAE, like most people who are affected, let's say like seriously, and they maybe even die, are people who are just like, I don't want to sound insensitive, but they're kind of unlucky because, especially because of the fact that a lot of people got the coronavirus. Like, I think we've reached a point where, you know, in my circle at least, almost everyone I know knows somebody who got corona or something similar to that. Like I basically half of my family got corona, like elders and young people and children, and they were all just fine. Like my grandma got corona and she didn't even get hospitalized, and she has like breathing issues anyway. So I think after having some like anecdotal experience of it, you just get desensitized to the whole situation. You feel like, even if I get it, like I'll probably be fine. I think the concern is the more like I don't want to spread it to somebody who might, be at greater risk, like your parents or somebody with, compromised immune system, let's say. That is the concern, I think, for most people. Because for most healthy people, they're like, I don't need to worry about getting it. I need to worry about getting it and spreading it. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think people around our age, like we're not that scared about meeting our friends because we think like, okay, if we spread it to our friends, it's not as bad as spreading it to our parents or their parents. And I mean, I think we still are in the dark about a lot of things about this virus. Like nobody really knows how it spreads, whether you're asymptomatic. Because let me tell you, like the story. My cousin, uh, his wife got the coronavirus, and they both got tested. And on that same night, they both slept in the same bed with their daughter. And she was positive, he was negative, and the daughter was negative, and the wife had to be quarantined. And those two never showed up with the coronavirus. So I think there's a lot of mystery about how it spreads. Because if
But
two
does it
people are
develop
sleeping
over
in
a period of time, or does it happen like in an instant physical like interaction, or what?
No, I think it does develop, but the fact that she tested positive and they didn't, and they were sleeping in the same bed, it says something. maybe it says that, it's not infectious before a certain period of time, before, like, I don't know, the viral count reaches some number or the symptoms show up. Because I think
Mhm.
even the UAE, like the health, the organization, or the, um, like the health authority in UAE, I
Yeah.
think they even said that it's only infectious 2 days before symptoms appear, something like that.
Maybe
So
because when you travel, they ask you to have the PCR test that's valid for 96 hours, 4 days. So maybe 2 to 4 days. Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah, but even like now, apparently though, if you go to AD and get, because I don't know if you know, but to enter AD you need to attest. Like the
Oh,
border
really?
is closed. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say you get a test, you enter Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
If you remain in Abu Dhabi for 6 days or more, on the sixth day you need to redo the test, because they found out that even if you have it, it could still test negative, because like the viral count has not reached a high number or something, and your symptoms have not shown. So I think people are kind of more relaxed about it now. You know, like the
Okay.
the death count in UAE is, I would say, low. Like it's 400 something so far, like 401. So I think people are more relaxed in this country than other countries, especially like we're not the US. Like
Oh man.
everyone has to wear a mask, everyone has to maintain social distancing. The fines are very heavy here. So I think people comply here more than other countries.
They do. They do. And I guess, like you said, that's probably the reason why it was more contained in these countries than other countries. Because
Yeah.
US is not taking any measures right now. Like people are just going out normally. And I get that people are frustrated, like at a mental level, because they just want to be able to do some of the normal things again. But there's
Hmm.
this cost now because, like, I want to do those normal things too, but I don't want to risk, uh, spreading it hypothetically to someone I care for, like my
Yeah.
parents or people in the house. So it just exacerbates the situation even more.
Hmm. You know,
Um,
I think because like the US, the authorities themselves are not enforcing people to comply. Like the administration that's in control of the country does not really care that much. And I don't know if you've heard a leaked voice call between Trump and I don't know who, but he was downplaying the virus. Like he said, I don't want to spread panic. So he knew it was serious. He just didn't want to make it, as serious as it was.
yeah,
But yeah, like back to online classes, like the first weeks before we knew it was going to be fully online, I think it was just slightly better than the weeks that followed, because in those weeks that followed it was like completely shut down. There was nothing you can go out to see, and especially that it coincided with Ramadan. So
yeah,
Ramadan is a time where you spend a lot of time with your family, you go out,
yeah.
you
Very vibrant.
yeah, you stay. Yeah, exactly. Like this Ramadan was very not vibrant. It was the most
Yeah,
depressing
because
one.
you all the mosques shut down too. So the whole point of Ramadan was to be like, to have the spiritual connection, and a lot of people that it really took a hit. It didn't feel like Ramadan, like even though you were fasting or what you were still
Hmm.
at home,
Hmm.
and it was a really bad Ramadan. So
Yeah.
even with Eid, the Eid after Ramadan, which is supposed to be this is the festival, right, in this part of the world,
Yeah.
nothing. You were asked to stay
Nothing.
at
Yeah.
home. Like in
And
fact,
we did stay at home.
yeah, I had more interaction on my lectures than I did on Eid. That was the irony of the situation. But
Yeah.
on May 7th, so we continued with the classes, and we started doing our exams online too. We did our senior project online too, and on May 17th, we got the announcement from the university, the chancellor, that the graduation ceremony is obviously not going to happen in June, and that
Hmm.
it's been postponed to a future date. Like we were asked, do you want to have something online, or would you wait and let the situation die down and have it like maybe when the next session begins, like in September, the fall
Hmm.
semester for the spring 2020 graduates? And I guess the statistics were that over 95% of the graduates said that no, we want a ceremony and we want it like whenever
Of
it can
course.
happen.
Yeah.
Um, So, but on June 6th, they said, regardless of when the students won the ceremony, on June 6th, we're still going to arrange for a virtual thing. So if you're interested, like if you've
I
already
was
taken
not
your picture,
interested.
yeah, if you've taken a picture, send it to us. Otherwise, like if you don't already have a picture of you in the graduation robe, send us a picture of yourself, and we'll have something on June 6th. You and I were discussing this. You didn't participate in the virtual ceremony. Why didn't you participate in the virtual ceremony?
Well, honestly, like let me backtrack a little. Like a few
Yeah,
days before, not a few days, but maybe like the 2 weeks that were before the supposed graduation ceremony. I
yeah.
think I don't know. I think our last exam was AI, right?
I had accounting after AI.
Okay, that I think that was my last exam, and it was the most anticlimactic, ending that I've ever had in my
Ending.
life because,
Yeah.
yeah, because usually, like, I don't know if you remember, like back in school, like those last days are so exciting. You're so excited to have the summer break, the winter break. Like, you can't wait to get done with that exam.
There's a
And
celebration waiting for you.
exactly. And
Yeah.
with AI, it was like, despite the graduation, with the last exam, I remember it was so, anticlimactic. I just finished. I
There's no
said
sense of
goodbye to you
accomplishment.
guys. No,
Yeah.
I closed my laptop and I went back to sleep. It was an 8 a.m. Exam, so like I was very
Yeah.
sleepy. But
Yeah.
if there wasn't a lockdown or anything, I probably would have gone out, you
Yeah.
know. But
Everyone would have gone out. Yeah.
it was just so sad. Did it happen in Ramadan?
The exam? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
it
why.
happened
Because
Ramadan.
uh, like Ramadan was kind of positive in a way for us because like Dubai people got the lockdown suspended, so we had like a 6 to 8 curfew. So it was a little bit better than the lockdown, but still not enough for you to actually live your life.
Yeah. You said this, like, I agree with you in terms of the exam. Like, the last exam you could potentially ever write. Uh, I remember writing my accounting exam. It was online, so you didn't even have that vibe of walking into the
Hmm.
hall room, sitting on the table, looking at that paper, using your pencil and writing it down and walking out of the room. It was
Opening the
just
doors and just
nothing. It was, or seeing other people around you. It was just, you're in this room that you've been in for the last 2 months or so, and you're on the same computer that you've always been using for your lectures. You open the
yeah,
computer, you make sure the camera's switched on, you tell your family in advance, hey, please don't come in because I'm writing my exam, and you write the exam and you close it, and that's it. And I remember I was in my pajamas writing my final
same.
exam, you know and I just thought to myself, like, and just like that, my university experience was over. And I just showed up to the table, and then they said, okay, so today was your last exam. My dad asked me. I said, yeah. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like
So
you know um school is a nice, ending. Like you're happy that you graduate and all, but I think university is like, oh, like you're an adult now, you have
yeah,
responsibilities,
yeah, yeah,
and the 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 switch from, having no responsibilities and having courses and all of that, the switch was very almost non-existent. Like there was no, leaving the hall and hearing that ruckus of people talking and about what their next step is going to be and how
yeah,
excited they are, and this company is
yeah,
going to hire them and they already are going to leave the country and do masters, and there was none of
yeah.
that. So you couldn't even like hear what other people are going through, and
Right.
not
Yeah,
just you personally or your friends. Like sometimes you could just be walking as you're leaving the building, like you overhear a conversation about this person saying how excited they are and how they're
yeah,
done, and there was none of that. There was none of that. And I guess why I didn't attend the online, graduation is because I felt robbed, of the whole
yeah,
university experiences. Because it's like, some things are good because of the end. And it's like you spent those 5 years and then nothing. you
Yeah,
know?
I'm
It's
so
as
with you on that.
if,
Like for me, for my university experience, it didn't really start on a good note. And
mhm,
for a very large chunk of it, I was very
me neither.
dissatisfied. I was very dissatisfied, and only in my last year, like starting spring 2019, things started getting slightly better for me gradually in small. And the last semester was going really well for me, and I felt that okay, if this entire experience started on a crappy note, at least it can be redeemed with a good ending,
Hmm.
which and things were shaping out to have a good ending, but that didn't happen.
Exactly. Like,
And
um,
yeah,
I was very happy with my last 2 semesters because I finally had a group, first of all, like the senior
yeah,
group, that kind
same,
of, like every person has the guys or the group,
yeah, the
and I
boys,
finally
yeah,
had that. The boys, like
yeah,
in university at least, I finally had that, and
yeah,
I just felt like, okay, if this is gonna be the end, I'm actually very excited and happy for it. Like I can't wait to see you, see Hassan, see Iyas, and we're all
yeah, yeah,
graduated, and we're
yeah,
walking down the
the
the runway
stage,
or the
yeah,
stage. Like
yeah,
that was like, I'm like, okay, if those 4 years ended like this, I'm very
yeah,
happy with that.
yeah,
So
same,
having it
same,
not end like that is like, you were robbed and now you're getting, a half-assed, solution, like, okay, a virtual thing. I'm like, no, like I don't want that. I'd rather just wait. But I think in the beginning I was like intent on waiting, but at this point, like, the anticipation just died down.
yeah,
Because
yeah. So
when you
you're
just,
not holding off for are you holding off for a ceremony now, or no, it's over for you?
I would still attend, but I'm not as excited. Like
Yeah,
the buzz has been
excitement and
killed.
anticipation, yeah, that's true, I agree with you.
It's
Like
done.
I'm no longer anticipating like a ceremony where I'm like I can't wait for the when things are okay, we're gonna walk on stage. I'm not excited about that anymore. If it happens, I'll be there, but
Yeah,
I'm not holding hope for that now.
because it's like, I cannot just, pause my life and keep it in mind that, like, I'm graduated. I just have to accept that. And if
Yeah,
that's how it went, that's how it went. I can't just be waiting for December, because even now, December is probably not going to happen. You
it's
know,
not.
it's
No,
probably not
and
going to. I
that's
mean, Ch-
yeah,
China is saying that they will have the vaccine ready in like 2 or 3 months to
yeah.
for
I,
distribution,
I
but
I'm
hmm,
getting to the question actually because I have the question about the vaccine too. So just hold your thoughts for that. So we
okay,
talked about the ceremony, and we also mentioned the differences in the little things during the lockdown, like the grocery stuff and meeting your
yeah.
friends and whatnot. I want to ask you this question: how does one move on from the opportunities lost due to COVID-19?
Well, I actually, like, I didn't have it planned out, but I did have the option of traveling abroad and doing masters, maybe in Germany or something. So maybe I probably wouldn't have done it, but just not being able to have the option kind of kills you know, your drive,
Yeah, it
because
does.
at least, even if you don't know what the next step is going to be, even if you don't know what you want it to be, the fact that you have the option is kind of more satisfying than,
The freedom to
being
make mistakes has
forced.
been taken away from you.
Exactly. Being forced to just be stuck and not have anything to do is just so boring, you know? It's
Yeah,
so, it's like such a static way of life. I can't even bring myself to watch something nowadays
yeah, yeah.
because I don't feel like it. I don't feel like having that life where I'm spending it, facing a screen. It's just not something I want anymore.
Like how long can I keep this up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the
but
opportunities lost, man,
yeah,
that is a very sad thing. Like, it's not like I had so many lined up for me, but I did have a bunch. Like I did have a
like
few, and
everyone did. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and just to have all of that taken away from you, and like, even though we are kind of over being a graduate, and the ceremony and all of that, there's still the fact that you're still not able to wear the shoes of an adult, because you can't have a job, you like barely can have an internship at this point. Like
Yeah.
things are still not as good as they could be, you know.
Yeah. When it comes to moving on from anything like pre the virus, the approach I used to have in my mind was, first of all, it's very important to get an answer with whatever you aspire to do or your goal, in the sense that, okay, I have this, I want to do this thing. Is it possible or is it not possible? Like, yes or no.
Hmm.
And regardless of what the answer is, you have to learn to accept the answer then. But with the whole pandemic, there were so many things lingering that you didn't get an answer. So you
You
didn't
don't even
know
know the
if this,
question.
yeah, I mean, like, you don't know if, like, for example, for the commencement ceremony, it's a very simple example, right? There are a lot more serious things, but let's say the commencement ceremony, not arguing against that it's not serious. It is a serious thing because it is an achievement. But let's, when we ask the university, hey, are we going to have this commencement in September? Back in
Hmm.
May, they said we don't know, and you can't blame them because that's a genuine answer. They don't know, but because they don't know what the answer is, it still lingers for you there, right? You don't know how to
Hmm.
move on from that because you don't have an answer. If the answer was yes, we're
Exactly.
gonna have it. If you're gonna have it, you're like, okay, so now in December we'll have it. If the answer is no, you're like, okay, it sucks, but I have to keep this behind me and I have to move on to something else. There is no answer, so you can't accept anything, and because you can't accept anything, you can't move on. And even if you do find yourself accepting something, like no matter how hard the pill is to swallow, how exactly do you move on? What do you look forward to moving on to? Because with this whole virus situation, there's this immobility that's been introduced. You can't
Exactly.
travel.
Like, you know, I think two things are certain in life, which are birth and death, and you know everything in between is a risk. But we're not even allowed to take a risk. There is no risk to take anymore. Like, you know, with an investment, you can risk your money, and maybe you lose, maybe you'll win. But at this point, there's nothing to risk because there is no outlet. You know, that's
Yeah,
the worst
yeah,
part. Like life is about uncertainty, but uncertainty in the sense that, you know, that comes from a decision, let's say, but not uncertainty in the sense that things are just going to unravel and no one has control over it, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Like
That's the
that's the
idea.
worst part. Like
Making mistakes, like I being allowed to make mistakes and learn from them. We can't do that anymore.
you know, we were already living in an uncertain world in terms of politics and all of that. So but at least that was kind of in the hands of humans. So let's say like Trump takes this decision, or this country does this, at least, you know, that would have still been within the vicinity of human control. But at this point, it's like nobody has control over this. That's the worst
Yeah,
part. You know, like it's
yeah,
uncertainty with no idea of who's taking control, who's driving the wheel, you know.
yeah. Um, we kind of touched on this, so we don't have to talk about it much, but I guess you could add something more to it. The concept of closure, right?
Hmm.
With the way things ended for us, you and I did not get the closure that we so desperately wanted, and the one that we earned in many ways.
Yeah.
So, if you could miraculously have one thing right now that would bring you closure, what would it be? And don't tell me a vaccine.
um to be honest, at this point I just want a job because I want to move on, and the only thing that I'm not going to call it a distraction, it's more like an outlet. The
Yeah,
only thing that could serve as an outlet right now is a job, because I do not want leisure anymore. You know, like you could offer me to travel and have fun right now. I really don't want that. I just want to contribute to something in some way or form,
yeah,
because I think like in a lot of ways I think this whole situation has taught us that sometimes you just have to be okay with not having closure. You know, like we like to think that life is like the movies. Like even if something bad happens, like let's say somebody you love dies, maybe like you still have the closure and see them in their final moments. I think this situation has really prepared a lot of us to be okay if that doesn't happen. You know, like even if a bad situation happens, it's okay to not have closure from it. Obviously, it's not going to be hopefully as bad as this, where it's like a collective kind of, you know, like all of humanity has gone through this and no one has gotten their closure. But I think on a personal level, it kind of prepares you for real life in the sense that some things are just going to happen and you're not going to be able to have closure, you know? And it's going to be
Right.
okay because it, that's how it is right now, at least, you know? I think the biggest, you know, bad part about all of this, like the crappiest thing about this is the fact that where do I build my motivation from now? You
Yeah.
know, because there's nothing that I'm excited for right now,
Yeah.
you know?
How do I get that drive now? Like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, man. And I agree with you. And since we can use this as a segue, since you brought the whole job thing up, you said that a closure for me would be right now to kind of engage in a job so AI can kind of I can make the best use of my time and contribute to something. And because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want excitement or anything right now, it doesn't even excite me. Leisure doesn't excite me anymore. Like watching
Mm-hmm.
movies or whatever, it doesn't do anything for me. On the subject of jobs, already the market was pretty competitive at the time when we were studying. And in my experience, I don't have a job at the moment. I don't know about you.
Me neither.
Uh, so whenever I do apply to any company, and I've taken a break from applying to companies actually because whenever I was applying to the company, like when I was a fresh graduate, like in June, that month, June, July, even towards the beginning of August, when I was applying to these different companies, it's not that the rejection doesn't really hurt me. It's the lack of response. That's
Mm-hmm.
one. And
Exactly.
because that just keeps you in the dark, even before the virus, like in general, when a company doesn't, there's a difference between being rejected and not being responded to. And it really pisses me off when your job is to respond back to the candidate and you don't even do that and you're an HR. It pisses me off because you should have the professionalism and decency to let me know if I didn't get the job so I can
Exactly.
move on to something else. But even if I do get rejected right now, uh, I am left with all these assumptions because I don't know if it's because of my lack of experience that I got rejected. I don't know if it's because of my ethnicity and the fact that every country has a particular quota of people that they need and they kind of
Yeah.
fill that quota. I don't know if my education isn't considered as high from the company standards, or if it's just this pandemic in general. I don't know, and because I don't know why what I lack in, I'm left in this kind of endless loop where I keep making the same mistakes over and over again in these different companies, and I just don't know how to improve myself. So, like, what's your experience with the job situation been like?
Well, I almost got into an internship, but same thing happened. They never responded. And most of the places I applied to, they never like talked back. I actually did have another internship where they told me if they don't respond, that means I didn't get it. But it wasn't
Hmm.
really in my field, and it was like the pay was low,
Yeah.
and I think it was like more mechanical engineering, so they'd have you move stuff around. It was like a
Okay.
physical job,
Yeah.
and you know, being paid that little and not even knowing if you're gonna get a job at the end of the day was just not worth it for me. You know, like
Yeah.
everybody has a cost and benefit that is personal
Sure.
to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and for me, the benefit was not, you know, greater than
Didn't
the
outweigh the
cost.
call. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, like in terms of jobs,
Mm.
I don't apply that much anymore because I'm just so sick and tired of the whole process.
I
You know,
agree.
even though I've been told that in a lot of companies, the thing that they're looking for is not really even technicalities. It's more like your personality, your social skills, and all of that. And that kind of makes me feel better. But at the same time, it's like, but I still can't apply because they're not accepting people anyway.
I don't buy that exactly. Like when they say, I don't know about like because when early on in the beginning of the semester, right? I was talking to this guy who was looking for someone full time, and he said that he
Hmm.
told me, well, Shoki, we outsource all our technical stuff to these cheaper countries. Right now, we need more sales guys and we need people who are better at communication skills and marketing.
Hmm.
And you knowing me, I'm more inclined towards the communication side, right? uh, and I was like, okay, so at least like this is not something I want to do, but at least it's a start to something. It is
Yeah.
something. It'll be a learning experience. But now, because of the way things are being communicated, or rather the lack of communication, I don't find myself motivated to apply as much anymore. Like I wake up and I tell myself, okay, I need to apply to X number of companies today, but I just don't go through that decision. And because I don't go through that decision, it's kind of like the day is kind of, each day feels the same to me. I make these small
Yeah.
changes, and I don't know if it's wrong of me to do those changes or how exactly I should proceed. But the job market right now is crap, and people are kind of utilizing this time to kind of learn new skills and stuff. But you need to have some sort of motivation,
Yeah. You
and
do.
because you don't have a motivation, it's some people can like get the motivation in whatever it is, whether it's finding a job, whether it's creatively exercising yourself, whether it's physically exercising yourself. You need some motivation,
Yeah.
and I just don't know about the job situation right now. It's just so bad, and maybe it's, I feel it personally, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just not seeing it right now.
One
um
second, I want to get a charger. Yeah.
yeah, so the job, we also talked about the post graduation plans. Like, what does that mean for students right now? Because a lot of people have suggested this to me. They said that because the job market is so trash right now, you should really apply for a master's.
Yeah,
and
I've been
uh,
told that.
and I just don't know how I feel about that, because I really want to, more than studying, I really want to explore fields at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you only do a master's when you're kind of 100% certain on the career path you want to follow, because
Exactly.
that's like doubling down, like, okay, this is what I want to do with my life. But if you haven't made
Mm-hmm.
the decision, then it'd be a bad choice to do that.
Yeah.
But and even if you do get a master's right now, I don't know if, I know some countries have resumed in person classes, but many have not. So even if you were to apply to a foreign country, what's the point of applying to a foreign country if you're going to sit at home and do online classes?
It's not just that, like, it's kind of uncertain. Like, should I apply to, masters, even in a country where classes are on campus, and then, oh, I have to leave because the pandemic gets worse, or the restrictions, or whatever it is. Like, all of these things are still, uncertain.
Yeah,
So any decision you want to take, it has to be a bit more localized,
yeah,
something that you can do without if it gets taken away from you, let's say. But let's say
yeah.
you
Like,
apply
don't,
to a master's,
yeah,
you get
creating your own problems in a way.
accommodation. Yeah, kind of. And it's just so uncertain. And they're like, oh, you have to leave the country, or it's going to resume online. And then you're not, maybe you won't have a source of income, let's say. And like all of these things, they just add to the uncertainty where the risk is just too high to take any decision,
Yeah,
with those situations. At least, like, if you get a job and let's say you live with your parents currently, you can kind of get away with it because you don't have to, like, move out. And let's say you lose the job in a few months because the pandemic gets worse or something, you can like still kind of, cheat your way through by staying at your parents. And if it goes away from you, well, at least you're back where you started. You're not worse.
yeah. But that kind of sucks too, because at least for me, the exciting part about graduating, what I was looking forward to when I was thinking about the last semester, right? Especially my last day, I was thinking about this. I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. Like, I know what I don't want to do, but for the
Yeah.
time being, I could kind of envision a life ahead of myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to graduate soon, and I'll get like a whatever job I can get right now. I have people I know here. I have a support system, and
Hmm.
at least for a while, I can I can get that adult life. I can get my own apartment. I can get my own car. I get a whiff of
Definitely.
that life. Uh, and that's something that everyone should do. That's how you get independent, and there's something liberating about that. But
Yeah.
the uncertainty just blows everything away.
It's just hard to become independent right now. Like I
It
even
is.
know people with jobs and they still find it hard to become independent
Yeah,
because it's like
sure. People who
the
don't
situation is
have
not
jobs are struggling to
certain.
find jobs, and people who have jobs are struggling to hold on to jobs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's just such a uncertain situation. Like, you know, I'm not looking forward to the vaccine in terms of health. I just want this to be over,
Yeah,
you know? Like, honestly, even from a like psychosocial perspective, just seeing everybody in a mask is just still a very weird thing. Like, I am used to it, but every once in a while I tell myself to notice how this is not normal because I don't want to get used to it. Like, I don't want to get used to it to the point where I make it the new normal. Like, yes, it
Yeah.
is normal right now. It's what we have to do, but I don't want this to become normalized in my brain, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I
At
totally
least
get you
from a
because that's what a lot of people are saying. They say that when you ask them, when do you think things are going to go back to normal? They say there is no back to normal. This is the new normal, and we have to accept that. I don't know if I
mm-hmm,
want to like. I can accept that this is the way things are right now, but I don't want
mm-hmm.
my norm, the definition of normal, to be defined with me sitting behind a computer screen and like dreaming, having fantasies about shaking someone's hand.
Yeah, or like every event is going to be virtual from now on. We're never going to go
Yeah,
back to, watching movies at the theater or having, events. Like, I don't want to believe that, you
yeah,
know? And
and
because it's honestly not a very believable thing. Like the world through went a worse pandemic in 1918 with the Spanish flu, and it lasted for 2 years. And, at that time, it killed like, I don't know, 60 million people. So I'm not saying like it's fine for people to die right now, but this is obviously a much better situation in comparison to the past. Maybe it is because of the things that we don't want to become normal, like social distancing, virtual events, and all of that. But we are just holding on to these as long as we have to, but we don't want to. It's kind of like you holding onto the edge of a cliff, waiting for somebody to put a cover under you, or a bucket of water, or
like a
something like
safety net. Yeah,
a safety net. And like I want to let this go at one point. I don't want to keep holding on. You know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
all of these things are just that to me. They're not the new normal. No.
You know, the list of negatives that resulted because of COVID, the list never seems to end. Even though you mentioned this, when we were talking about closure, you mentioned how this pandemic has kind of taught us that sometimes there is no closure and we have to accept that, which kind
Hmm.
of is a positive thing, if you can spin it that way. But can you
It is.
think of anything positive that resulted out of this pandemic, like other than this, or is that it?
To be honest, I believe that on a personal level, there are a lot of things that, a lot of positive things that came out of it. I
Okay.
think one of those things is the fact that at least the lockdown, made you realize that a lot of things that you thought you needed, you didn't really need. It was
Yeah,
more of
for
a,
sure.
like, it was nice. It was nice to have those things, but it wasn't a requirement for your
Not a
survival.
necessity. Not a necessity.
Yeah, yeah. Even on
Yeah.
a mental level, I think after the lockdowns were over, like, I still don't go out as much as I used to, and it's not because of the fact that, there's still a pandemic going on. I'm telling you, like, I do meet my friends and stuff, but it's just, I don't have that need in me anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe I want it every once in a while, but I don't have the need to go out. Like, I don't feel like if I don't go out during a weekend, like, oh, it's been wasted, like, on a level it does feel like that, but not as serious as it used to. Like, there's no that sense of, oh, I missed out.
Yeah.
It's more like I
I
wanted
think.
to have fun, but it's fine.
Yeah. I guess the most like common example of that would be eating outside, because that used to be a thing that people used to do like really often. But because of the whole pandemic, people really started hesitating from going out and eating food from restaurants and fast food joints. And now, if I imagine things to get back to normal tomorrow, I don't think I'd like. Well, in the first week, I'd definitely make a plan. Like, hey guys, we got to eat out because it's been such a long time. Like in a normal way,
Hmm.
sit down someplace with friends and laugh and eat. But I don't think I would kind of reassess my finances, because
Yeah,
now I can understand what I really need and what is a luxury to me.
exactly.
And while the luxury is obviously important to enjoy yourself, you can you can assess
Cut
how
back.
important it is. Yeah, cut back.
Yeah. And it's not just that. Like, I think another positive thing that came out of this was the fact that you, or at least for me, I kind of became more aware of what I actually want. Like, I realized that for me, it's not really a want to go out to dine out with friends. Like, it is a nice thing to do, like, once a month, but I realized what are the things that I enjoy more in life.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
road trips, let's say, being in nature, um, just being with friends in general, not
yeah,
the things that I thought I needed. you know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that
And
was a
also,
good thing that came out of it.
I think you also reassess a lot of relationships and people you had in your life with the whole pandemic,
Yeah.
and really helps you understand who the background characters of your life were and who the supporting characters of your life were.
Yeah. I got close
Yeah.
to some people and I cut some people, you know?
Yeah, true. Me too. Me too.
I got really
And
close to some people.
yeah, that. So I guess those are the positives that resulted from the pandemic.
They
Uh,
are. And I think like the positive thing that is yet to happen, I think when this is all over, and I do know that it will be all over, I
yeah.
think the feeling is going to be something to look forward to, you know? Like
Uh,
it's like
yeah.
a burden lifted off the shoulder of everyone collectively at the same time.
Yeah. We kind of did talk about this because we talked about so many things in a really jumbled way because we're just so frustrated. But it's good.
Yeah.
How are you keeping yourself engaged right now?
Well, honestly, like uh I I had a different routine a while back, like a week back, but that has changed because the person I had a routine with got a job, got an internship actually, but it could potentially become a job. So I don't know. Not right now. I'm kind of trying to find what I should do. You know, like
Yeah.
we used to gym every day,
Yeah.
and now I'm just back to not knowing what to do anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I'm just sitting.
I was watching this interaction of these stand-up comedians, right? And just a minute. Just, sorry about that. I said I was watching this interaction of these stand-up comedians, and they were just talking about the whole pandemic situation and how they're keeping sane essentially. And this guy said that he does three things every day to keep himself sane. He exercises, he reads, and he talks.
Hmm.
And when I heard him say that, I was exercising. I wasn't reading, but I was writing. So I was like I was exercising both physically and creatively, like with the guitar and writing, but I wasn't talking. You know?
Hmm.
And that was like one of the reasons why I wanted to do this whole podcast series because I kind of thought to myself maybe there's someone else out there who's not talking either,
Hmm.
and it could be used as a platform. So, and like you said, you really realize the things you need in your life and things you don't need in your life. And I guess no matter
You
how
do.
introverted no matter how introverted you are, you do need people in your life.
You do. You know,
Yeah.
that's one thing I think maybe became clear to me is that that whole idea of full independence, it's not realistic and it doesn't
Yeah, it's
work
not.
because human beings are a social species, you know. So
Yeah.
I really became more comfortable with the idea that I may not be able to stand on my own feet for a while, you know, like for a few years. And by that I don't mean, you know, like I'm gonna keep living off of my parents' money, but maybe like not reach full independence, you know, like be able
Yeah.
to start a family, have a house, have your own, you know, car, travel everywhere you want. Like I think I became more okay with that because I realized that it's not a very realistic thing to hope for anyway, you know. And even when you do reach full independence, like people usually think of full independence as settling down and getting married, you know. That's still not doing it on your own. You're still having
No.
a partner, you're still ending up with kids, so you can't live alone. You can't. It's just
Yeah.
not a possibility.
And it's a miserable life, man. If you do live alone.
It is.
Yeah.
It is like
Uh,
even if you're the Buddha or, you know, you're a prophet, like eventually you come back from your isolation and you interact with people, you
you
know.
need companionship. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, my next question was again we touched on this, but I wanna like have a more conclusive answer. Is waiting for a vaccine a good strategy?
uh do you mean that on a personal level or like, you know, authority level?
Uh, well, let's talk about a personal level.
Well, I think waiting in general is not a good thing, you know. Like being patient and just not having a specific solution in mind is the way to go. But I
Yeah.
think betting on something, is not a very good strategy. Like, I do believe a vaccine will eventually emerge,
Yeah.
because it's just the way things will happen. And, like, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories or anything, but it seems like that's the way things are planned, whether it's on a, spiritual level, or it's on a, physical level where, governments were planning this. It's just the way things are heading. Like, they've already approved a lot of vaccines for the third trials, and a lot of like, UAE actually approved the vaccine for emergency use, like the
Okay.
frontline, health workers, they can
Yeah,
get
yeah, I read
vaccinated.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that, I don't think they would risk, vaccinating people when the vaccine could be dangerous. you know I
Yeah,
know
that
the
was
Oxford vaccine got stopped for a while because there was a person who ended up with an illness, but they resumed it. So it's just the way things are headed. And I think by the beginning of the year, maybe like, I don't know, March or maybe June, we'll probably have it.
I agree with you in the sense that I don't like waiting for things to happen normally because I don't think that's healthy.
Hmm.
But in this situation, it's like it's it's not so much about waiting for a vaccine. It's more about not fixating on the vaccine being the only solution and
Yes.
trying to find, like, even though it's very difficult, but you have to try to find some sort of motivation right now, whatever
Like, don't
capacity
stop
it
your
may be.
life.
Yeah, don't stop your life. Whatever life you can make for yourself right now, even though it may be
Exactly.
in whatever capacity, just don't stop it. So I would say the same thing. But hypothetically speaking, let's say a vaccine does come up tonight, right? Let's say there's an announcement of vaccines tonight, and you can sign up for getting your shots tomorrow. Would you be one of the people first in line for that or no?
No.
Me neither, but I want to hear you say why.
Well, I don't trust it that much. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've played this game, Fall Guys.
Which game? Fall Guys? No, I've heard of it though.
Well, it's there is a map where you have to like go through doors, and
Yeah.
some of them, it's like a parkour, and some of them are fake doors. So a
Okay.
good strategy would be to wait for somebody to go through the doors and see which ones are real, and then you just go through them. So I know it sounds a bit selfish, but I don't want to be, like,
You don't want to
injected
be a
with
lab
something
rat.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
I
if
guess the
I
thing is that
have
no one
to.
wants to. People want to see, does this vaccine have any side effects? Because we've waited so
Exactly.
long for this to show up, and if it does show up, either it should be like, it would suck so bad for the vaccine to be announced, and then for people to realize that the vaccine has done more harm than it has saved lives. How?
Exactly.
What a nightmarish scenario would that be? Like, what if people start actually turning
Yeah.
to zombies? Like, what if that happens?
And I guess it depends on the side effects. Like, if the side effects are like, oh, you'll get like a rash for a week, or maybe like
Yeah.
a fever, I would be like,
Mhm.
okay, fine. But if the side effects are like death, okay, maybe not. You know,
Yeah. Hmm.
because the
So
the person in the Oxford study ended up with some illness in the spinal cord. So that's not a side effect I'm willing to sign up for.
yeah.
You know.
Uh, I agree with you. What advice do you have for the students who are currently in their final semester right now doing their online courses?
Well, uh, I can't speak for students worldwide. I can just speak for the region, like at least for UAE. I
Yeah,
think since now people are, becoming more okay with the situation, things are starting to get back to normal. People are visiting their family members, they're going out, and the weather is getting better. Like, I think in general, things are starting to look a little less bleak, you know, and try to at least look forward to something that is certain. Like personally, even though I'm not a student anymore, I'm looking forward for the weather to get better, you know? And it's
yeah,
something that is very certain. It is going to happen. So, like, I guess try to be hopeful about things that you're certain are going to happen, you know? So you can be certain that, you're going to do well at a course. You can be certain that the weather is going to get better. You can be certain that some things are going to get better, and things are getting better. So
yeah,
I think it's good to hold on to the things that will get better no matter what happens. You know, you can always focus on your courses. You can always focus on going out, seeing people, at least in a safe way. You know, like
Yeah.
obviously don't go out with somebody who goes clubbing every night. Like you don't want to be exposed to somebody with such a high risk. But I think if, you know, you're going to meet somebody who doesn't go out as often, why not? You know, like it is a risk, but at least it's a risk that you can take. And you will know eventually if you turn up with the disease. And honestly, looking at the death rate and looking at the medication that they have available for it, I think it's a risk that's worth it. Unless you have somebody who's immunocompromised, somebody who, you know, will not be able to handle the virus, then maybe you shouldn't take that risk and be selfish, you know?
Yeah. Um, you just reminded me of the weather in UAE towards the end of the year. It's so, I just, I'm now thinking of wearing my jacket and, you know, drinking chai in that winter weather. And that's really one of the
Yeah.
best parts about
I'm really
the
looking
weather.
forward to that. Like, I'm really tired of summer. This has been the longest
Eh,
summer.
Pretty long summer, yeah, really long summer.
Oh, I think you should wait for the US elections
Why?
because
And then
that
go
could
to
be
America?
no, I don't know. It could be a turn of events because it's like, I mean, let's be honest. The world
Yeah.
is not as sunshine and rainbow as we want it to be. So you never know. Like maybe Trump pulls the vaccine at the last minute just to win, and then everybody gets, you know, happy. That could be a possibility. I mean, politics is a very rigged game, so it could just be lying around, but Trump is waiting for the perfect moment, or somebody's waiting for a perfect moment. I mean, all of these things are possibilities, you know?
I really hope you're right, because if you are, then the numbers on this video are just going to spike like crazy. And you'll be like this, you'll be like, they'll be put a crown on you for the conspiracy theorist king.
I mean, no, it's not. It's not even a conspiracy. I mean,
No,
Trump
I get what you're saying. I
he
get
did
what you're
say we're
saying.
gonna have the vaccine in like 3 weeks or a month.
Like, and
So
he probably walks up to the debate, and then they're like, "So what do you have for us?" And he reaches out for his pocket and he shows out the vaccine. It's like, "I've got this for you." And he just throws it in. The crowd
and
goes crazy.
China says they're gonna be able to distribute it, and I assume by distribution they mean like to the world in 3 months.
Well,
That's
yeah,
not long.
you showed us how fast you are at distributing things, so I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, you're right. So, in closing, what do you want to say about the whole experience of graduating COVID-19 and where you are at the moment?
Well, I just want to say that things have definitely not turned out to be what I wanted them to be. There was no gratification. But you know, at the same time, in this age where everybody's looking for that instant high, instant rush, instant gratification, I think maybe it turned out to be a good thing that, you know, you wasted, and you really didn't waste, but you wasted 5 years of your life for that moment of, you know, success and happiness and joy and, you know, all of that, and you didn't get it. And I think I honestly don't regret that, you know. I would still do it all over again because I think at the end of the day, you learn that maybe the satisfaction that you were looking for was the wrong one. Maybe you should have not settled for less, but looked for something else to be a source of satisfaction. And maybe that's a lesson to learn, you know, because as an investor, when you invest, a good, you know, mentality is to just assume that you already lost that money. Because if you start, you know, hoping and counting the days until you get that return and you might never get it, you're going to be very disappointed. So I think my mentality, what I learned from this thing is that it's better to just, you know, go with the flow, live in the moment, try to look forward for things, but don't be so fixated on them happening because honestly, anything could happen at this point. Anything.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's a very good conclusion. And on that note, we've come to the end of our discussion. So we've come to the commencement of our discussion. I'm gonna do this thing. You know, I have this Pun-clusion, not a conclusion. Yeah. So I don't think I'm gonna get
Gotcha.
another guest now. I'm not gonna get another guest probably. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Well, thank you for having me. This was such a nice talk. I don't think I've talked to somebody about this for 2 hours.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of long conversations lately, and I'm enjoying them. Do you
which is a
have
good
something
thing.
you want to plug? You want to have something you want to plug in?
Well, I just hope I can see you soon because it's been a long time,
Yeah,
you know?
it's been 6 months. 6 months, I think.
Yeah, and I hope things get better for you, for the situation there, for the situation here, the entire world really. Like,
Yeah, for the entire world, really. Inshallah, inshallah, it will get better. And yeah, on that note, thank you everyone for watching this, and please take care.
thank you.
And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye bye.